All right, back on another episode of the official Waterford FC podcast. I'm glad to say joining me on this week's episode, Finlay Armstrong. Finn, how are you?
Yeah, all good, thanks. Thanks for having me on.
Good stuff, good stuff. I would say welcome to Waterford FC, but you're here probably about 2 months now.
Yeah, probably just under 2 months, month and a half. Been really good so far, settled in quite nicely. I'd say the Irish people are probably a lot similar to Scousers, all very warm and welcoming. So yeah, it's been good in that aspect.
Yeah, it was something I was going to bring up. I have a lot of friends in Liverpool from over the years, and a lot of them always refer to it as the 33rd county of Ireland, especially down the Scotty Road kind of area and stuff like that. So you're here probably about 2 months now, I think.
Yeah, about 2 months. Yeah.
How has the transition been going from England to Ireland, first of all?
Slightly different. I'd say the leagues are probably a little bit more technical, I'd say, over here. I think a lot of the teams sort of, when I base it on sort of last year with Rochdale in the National League, I'd say the teams over there are probably a lot more sort of direct in the way they want to play. I'd say teams over here kind of, the majority anyway, all want to sort of play out from the back, and it's all quite nice and pleasing on the eye. But I've really loved sort of the games I've been involved in so far.
Yeah, I think it's great to hear that, to be honest with you, because I think the surge in popularity for the League of Ireland in the last few years has been absolutely brilliant. But also, I think, as you said, to your point, the style of play has come on so much, and the quality of football in the League of Ireland has come on so much. Is that something that has surprised you? Is it something that maybe you weren't expecting and maybe you had to kind of adjust? Because you seem to have settled in very well.
Yeah, it's definitely surprised me. I'd say first and foremost, probably the coverage of the league has really sort of took me by surprise. You know, the coverage of the games, and I think when I first learnt about sort of coming here, obviously I was doing a little bit of due diligence and sort of finding out a little bit more about the league. Obviously I watched a few games back home, and I was quite surprised really with obviously how you say the standard, but also sort of the coverage and you know how the league is sort of like portrayed and put out there.
Yeah, because I think, you know, I wouldn't even say 10 years, I would say the last 5-6 years, the popularity of the league has certainly surged. It's brilliant to see. You know, I think especially when I was growing up, you know, you would go to the games and stuff like that, but I think the fanaticism has certainly kicked on, and it's easy to see. Even we take the open training session that we did quite recently, the crowd of young kids that were there following. Is that something you were even expecting, the hardcore fan base?
Yeah, I'd say, like, in terms of Waterford as a city, it's quite sort of, I think it'd be fair to say it's quite sort of a small place, but it's close knit and sort of kind of, I was saying to a few lads off camera before, like it's everyone kind of knows everyone, so it's got that sort of like, you know, working class, hard work and sort of background. So yeah, as you say, I mean, sort of the turnout at the open training sessions, and even sort of it surprised me the following, you know, the club have had, and even, you know, at the games and, you know, the fans and the noise they make, it's been sort of surprising, but obviously, you know, pleasing.
You made your debut against St Mochtas in the FAI Cup, and you turned a lot of heads, 2 assists. I know it was, you know, a lower league opposition to play, but still you have to win the games, you have to turn up. You must have been pleased with that debut. Yeah,
it was probably, you know, a nice game to come into. I think, you know, sort of after I played that game, I'd sort of not realised how long it had been until, like, since I'd last played sort of a full game. I think it had been about 3.5-4 months. Wow. Obviously with the seasons working a little bit differently back home, I was on the back of a break sort of in the off season as well, so that was the first sort of time I'd certainly started and played 90 minutes. But yeah, no, I was obviously pleased with how I'd done that night, and I think I gave myself a good platform really to obviously build on.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great win on the night. As I said, look, you look at draws sometimes, you go, oh look, we've drawn a non-league team, or whatever way you want to look at it. But you still have to turn up and have to win the games. But I think the talking point coming out of that game was yourself, to be honest with you, with a lot of the fans. Sometimes, you know, you get halfway through the season, the window opens, as you said yourself, completely different window than the English league. We play summer football here, and oftentimes when you sign someone midway through the season, you're kind of going, well, you're almost catching up with yourself.
Yeah.
But I think you definitely announced yourself. It must have been so pleasing for you, though.
Yeah, it was 100%. You know, getting that sort of first first taste of, as I was saying, you know, it'd been a while since I'd even sort of started the game and played, so it was just getting that feeling back. And, you know, obviously I really enjoyed the game, and it was a good turnout as well. So them games are obviously sort of a lose-lose, if you like, because as you say, you come up against, you know, a opposition that you know, you're expected to beat. So, you know, you beat them, people say, well, you should have beat them. But if you don't obviously get the 3 points, then you know, at the same time, people are pointing fingers. So
Exactly.
it's just obviously important. It was a good result on the night.
Yeah, and I mean, if you like, it's always a slippery slope, as you say yourself. You know, a Premier League team throwing somebody out of the league like that, and there's always the potential, especially in cup football, to, you know, for a scalp and all that kind of stuff. But thankfully, it didn't go that way. Obviously, look, the cup hasn't panned out the way we would have wanted it this year, but you know, it was a good start for yourself. How frustrating has it been then, from, you know, going from such a good start, you know, bombing down the wings, taking on players, crossing in balls, something that we've been crying out for on the pitch? How frustrating has it been then to pick up a niggle and to be out for a while?
Oh, extremely frustrating, to be honest with you. I think, as I say, you know, coming here, I wanted to sort of hit the ground running. You know, I think I gave myself a good platform, sort of, and I felt like, obviously, the St. Martin's game, then we went into Galway. Obviously, we beat them. I'd only found out after the game it had been something like 18 years or something like that, but since Waterford had beat Galway away. So we were building quite nicely, you know, sort of collectively and individually. Then obviously you go into the Pats game. And yeah, a few days later, obviously picked up a little niggle in sort of towards the end of training, which is, you know, incredibly sort of frustrating. And yeah, my head was probably a little bit all over the place in the sort of the first couple of days. Obviously, I got it scanned and whatnot. It come back that it was going to be a few weeks out, so obviously you've got to then shift that mindset to obviously working as hard as you possibly can in the gym to get back as soon as possible. So I think obviously I'm over the hill now, so hopefully it'll only be a matter of time till I'm back with the lads.
You're ready to get back. How much more frustrating is it to get injured like that in training rather than in the game? Is there a difference, or is it more frustrating?
No, I'd say, you know, any injury in general, regardless of how it happens, it's just equally sort of frustrating. As I say, it's part of football sometimes, and maybe people sort of outside the game don't really understand, you know, what it's like for footballers at times, although it is part and parcel of football. It can be, as I say, especially in my situation where I'm coming sort of on the back of a break, and for me coming here, I just wanted to play sort of consistently. So, you know, to give yourself that platform, play the first few games, and then sort of have that setback thrown at you, it's just, as I say, yeah, incredibly frustrating, but just one of them things.
I think on the positive side, though, of things for yourself is that, you know, a lot of the fans are asking, you know, where's Finn? He burst on the scene. Is he injured? When is he coming back? It's always a great sign, I think, anyway, from someone either inside the club or even just as a supporter of the club. When the fans are talking about you, when they're wondering where you are when you come back, you feel like a loss already to the team. It's a great testament to yourself and the start you've made.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pleasing start that I did make. So, as I say, yeah, obviously I'm working as hard as possible to get back out on the pitch.
Do you think there's something, sorry Finn to interrupt, but do you think there's something in the idea of you hadn't played 90 minutes for about 3 or 4 months and you come back so hard, so fast? Is it maybe a little bit?
Yeah, potentially. I mean, you know, sort of when it happens, I was speaking to obviously Darrow, one of the S&C coaches at the club, and he was obviously looking at me load and like little bits and bobs that maybe could have done better or could have avoided, but I don't think there was nothing really. I think it's just part of football sometimes. Like it was literally just a nothing thing towards the end of training, and it's just one of those things you can't control, unfortunately. Yeah. So we're here now.
So look, you mentioned the similarities between Waterford and Liverpool, especially Ireland and Liverpool. What does your childhood, your growing up look like in Liverpool? What part of Liverpool are you from?
So I grew up in an area called Croxteth, famously where sort of Wayne Rooney was. He grew up. We grew up I was an only child for the first 4 years, so I'm the oldest of 3 children. And we not long moved. I was about 6 or 7 years old. I moved to an area now where we live called West Derby, in Liverpool, which is obviously where I've spent most of my childhood.
Yeah, and coming from Liverpool, I mean, the football pedigree in the city is incredible. I mean, And the big thing, I suppose, big question a lot of people would ask straight away is, are you red or are you blue?
I'm a red.
Yeah,
I'm a red.
I knew that, but I just wanted to set that up. But look, listen, as I said to you, Liverpool, Everton, but there's also Tranmere Rovers as well.
Yeah.
You know, there's such a football pedigree, and even coming from where you're coming from, having Wayne Rooney, I mean, he must have just burst on the scene around the time you were probably born, which is...
Yeah, it will have been, yeah.
Which is crazy for me to say. I can't believe how old I'm getting, but... was it always football? Was football always a major thing for you?
Yeah, I mean, when I think back to like sort of like my childhood and sort of childhood memories and stuff like that, everything was just revolved like around playing football. You know, whether that was sort of in the early days learning how to play and kick the ball with my dad in the garden, or like obviously as I got a little bit older, playing out in the streets with my mates, and then obviously you go into your local teams of a Saturday and Sunday. Like when I think back to sort of like childhood memories, everything just literally was revolved around football. And as you say there, Liverpool, you know, it's renowned as sort of a hard working class sort of background. A lot of sort of kids, you know, young lads coming up want to be sort of footballers, and you have these role models coming out of the city in terms of your Steven Gerrards, your Wayne Rooneys, and a lot of young kids aspire to be like that. So I'd say I was probably another one of them. Just loved playing football, really. Yeah,
like even for myself, spending a lot of my childhood in Liverpool, going to games with my dad, you know, and we have distant relatives and stuff over there, spending time in their house, going out on the streets and stuff like that, and everything was about kicking football, and everything was about being a footballer and stuff like that. So it's no surprise that so many football players on a professional level come out of Liverpool.
Yeah, as I say, like I said before, like, you know, for me, like growing up in Liverpool, you either wanted to be a footballer, or like a lot of other like lads go into either boxing, but mainly it was football. So you're in sort of that competition really early on, because there's that many sort of lads, you know, across the country, but you know, especially sort of growing up in Liverpool, who you've got the role models you're looking up to, and yeah, I mean, it's everyone's just sort of football mad really.
Even as a place though, Liverpool, like you mentioned, it's definitely known for being working class, and it is such a great working class city. But even from myself going there so often throughout my life, the change in Liverpool from probably around the time you were born actually up until now is night and day. Like if you hadn't gone to Liverpool since the late 90s or early 2000s and went there now, you probably wouldn't recognise it as a place. What was it like growing up around the changes within the city and it becoming a really like prosperous European city?
Yeah, I mean, it become very sort of, at one point I think it was multicultural, like it was really multicultural.
It was European capital of culture.
That was it, yeah. So yeah, I mean, you've got sort of people coming from all over the world. Obviously, Liverpool itself as a football club, you know, that attracts a lot of people anyway, sort of in the modern day, in terms of tourists and people coming over, and you know, they want to watch the games. But also obviously you've got like the Beatles and you know, the Albert Dock, and you know, there's a lot of history behind it. So yeah, I mean growing up, I've got loads of like sort of pleasant memories of you know, experiences like growing up in the city.
Like you were saying there, you know, you're either going to be a footballer or a boxer, but then straight away I was thinking about music, because the Beatles, the Zootons,
I forgot that one.
Yes, Frankie Goes to Hollywood. You could go on and on and on about the incredible groups. Like, has music ever been something you've been interested in?
Yeah, I've always loved music, but it was never something like really I got into. Sort of, I remember sort of in the early years, when I was in school and people were learning how to play instruments and stuff like that, but like I'd be lying if I said I took an interest in it. I just wanted to have a ball at my feet really from early doors.
So what does the early stages of a career look like then? At what age does it kind of look like, well, I can probably make a career out of this?
Probably when I was picked up by Burnley, I'd say, at sort of 12 years old. So I was playing actually schoolboy level for Liverpool schoolboys, and I was picked up by a scout at the time who was watching one of the games there, and he sort of asked, I think he approached me dad after the game and asked, you know, would I be interested in going down there. Burnley's probably about an hour away from Liverpool, so you know, it doesn't seem that far away, but it's a fair old trek. Like obviously for your parents to be going up there 3-4 times a week. So I was quite lucky in the fact that actually there was a few other lads who were from Liverpool at the time who, when I got to Burnley, were already there, so we kind of had like a sort of carpool type thing, because otherwise it probably would have been too much to manage, because if you think of sort of your parents obviously working 9 to 5 every day, and then they've got to drop everything of an evening, take you an hour down the motorway to Burnley, watch you train for 2 or 3 hours, and then bring that's their whole day gone really, so it's a big commitment. But yeah, I'd say that was probably the first sort of taste of maybe this could end up somewhere.
And especially because I mentioned how far Liverpool came on as a city throughout your childhood, but Burnley as a football club had a similar trajectory, like surely from the time you must have went in there as a schoolboy, like going up through the leagues and ending up as a Premier League club then.
Yeah, 100%. Like, I think when I first went there, it was known as a Category 3 academy, so it didn't, the facilities compared to what they are now was like chalk and cheese. So I kind of caught it like at that time where it was sort of building from sort of 0 to 100, so sort of what it is now. So yeah, as I say, I spent a lot of time there, and I seen the club sort of progress in terms of becoming an established sort of Premier League club, and obviously all the the interest and the money and whatever that comes within that, to then obviously improve the facilities and to what it is now. I think if you've ever visited there, like, its facilities are second to none really.
And what does it feel like being a part of the club? Do you feel those changes as the senior team, I suppose, for lack of a better term, are progressing like that? Do you feel that coming down the ladder?
Yeah, well, I think at the time, well, for the majority of the time, I was at Burnley. The manager of the first team was Sean Dyche.
That's right.
So he spent obviously an awful lot of time at the club, probably recognised as one of Burnley's most successful, if not probably most successful manager, for what he'd done in terms of getting them into the Premier League and keeping them there for however long it was. He obviously was quite renowned for having his teams to be quite hard to play against, and tough, sort of hard work, and I think that was kind of followed then by the academy. They had that sort of, the first team played the same way as the under-13s, for example, or you tried to implement it at least, in terms of being hard to play against. So he was quite obviously an old school sort of manager. So coming through, you had all those sort of values that were instilled into you, and looking back was probably such a positive thing really.
And how we spoke to like Ron McDonald, for example, on this podcast before, came up through the City Academy, and he mentioned that Pep Guardiola's fingerprints were all over those teams growing up, and he'd even come and watch some of the games, and then some of the youths would have an opportunity to train with the first team. Was it similar experience at Burnley? Would you see Sean Dyche maybe looking in on some training sessions and stuff like that?
Yeah, I mean, I'd say in terms of Matt's experience at City, I think they probably had a bit more of a fair bit more of a scalp to obviously bring players through. I think from a first team perspective, Burnley's, like first and foremost, they wanted to stay, in the Premier League. So City obviously were a very successful club, a lot of money attracting players, even, through an academy base. So I'd say it probably differed ever so slightly in terms of that. But yeah, I mean, from personal experience, trained obviously with the first team, more than a few times actually at Burnley, and obviously the experiences that you learn so much from, and obviously they help you to be the player you are today. Yeah,
and I mean, I think you love to get stuck in from what I can see, obviously here 2 months, but from what I've seen, you like a tackle as much as you like an attack and run. And that surely is something that comes from that school and at Burnley. Yeah,
100%. I think like as a fullback, certainly sort of coming through the academy there, you were taught to be a defender first and foremost. So anything else was probably a bonus in terms of getting forward and getting crosses into the box. So I'd say like in terms of what I touched on before, the academy kind of was mirrored by the first team, and how Sean wanted his team to look, which was obviously really hard to play against. So you had to sort of have that to your game, and yeah, I think I've got sort of the two balances really. You've obviously got to be able to tackle and look after yourself, but also I like, obviously getting forward as well and contributing and getting crosses into the box.
You played for, which I found very interesting, FC United of Manchester.
Yeah.
And I know Liverpool had a breakaway kind of a club when Hicks and Gillette were part of it, and they kind of did an FC Liverpool thing. And this is they started. I could be wrong, but what I know of it is the kind of an anti-Glazer startup.
Yeah, that's what it is. Yeah.
What was the atmosphere like around that? Very interesting club.
You know what? Unbelievable. Like I think looking back, it was so good for me to go out and get that experience. I think I was actually 16 when I first went out on my first sort of loan, so I had that good balance because I'd played sort of academy football at Burnley, where you obviously get the technical sort of aspect of the game coached into you, and you're coming up against other Premier League academies and stuff like that. But I was sort of still a fairly young age at 16 to go out and sort of play men's football. I think the first club I went to was Padiham, which was a local sort of team near Burnley, and then obviously I progressed through the non-league rankings, and as you say, I ended up at the FC United of Manchester, and they were obviously a brilliant club, as you say, anti-Glazer, so it's fan owned. But yeah, like I remember it had like the emulations of like a league club really, because they had that many sort of fans and they were so passionate, and the facilities in the stadium there for the level were like second to none really. So you were going into the games feeling almost as if, as a young lad, this is what it could, be a taste of, playing in the league however many years down the line. Yeah.
Like I just remember when that was on the rise, it was around the time where Gary Neville and Scholes and all them got involved with Salford, and some of the Man United fans were starting to kind of keep an eye on Salford, what they were doing, but that FC United of Manchester thing became more of a thing then. So like, I suppose to get a taste of men's football, as you said, but also at such a passionate club where really the foundations of the whole thing are passion, are for the love of football.
Yeah.
And a fan-owned thing. It must have been just such a unique experience as a player.
Yeah, it was like it was so sort of good as well for sort of my confidence, because even like I'd say probably the trouble with academy level back at home at the minute is sort of you find players get trapped within it. So not a lot of players like get to go out and experience that sort of playing in front of a crowd, or playing men's football really. So then when it comes to the end of the time, when maybe a club turns around and says, we don't want you anymore, and like a lot of players don't have that experience, where they've been out and sort of, as I say, played men's football really, and it was an invaluable sort of experience, for me to get that so early. And yeah, it was great to have on my CV moving forward.
I think that's something that spectators, fans would definitely overlook. I mean, I've probably been guilty of it myself when you're following a team and you see an exciting youth prospect and you go, I would like to see more of them. But as you're saying, it's not just as simple as putting a 16 or 17-year-old into a man's team in the Premier League, and then you find out they're going out on loan, they're kind of going, he's going down. But that's what a young player wants. They want to get the experience of it.
Yeah, 100%. And as I touched on before, like I had that good balance because they were obviously a part-time sort of team. I was training with them maybe once or twice a night, and I'd play games for them on a Saturday. So during the day, I'd still be training at Burnley, and I'd have that balance really where I was still getting coached, no disrespect to FC United, but, from an unbelievable sort of...
Oh, there's no comparison, of course.
Yeah, coaches at Premier League level, really, it's sort of, in the academy at Burnley. So, yeah, as I say, that balance really is invaluable. So you've got the technical aspect of sort of, academy type football, and then obviously the physicality of, going out there and playing against men, really, as a boy.
Mm-hmm. How do the lower leagues in England compare to the top level, I suppose, over here? I hear a lot of players talk about how difficult it is. This is Irish players going to England. How difficult it is to make a splash in England, because and this is again only from what I've heard reported, that when you start at National League and you go to League One, there's not a whole heap of difference. Like it's such a competitive throughout the leagues.
Yeah, it is. Like I think the money in the game in general, but especially the money like over in the UK now, with the Premier League being obviously widely regarded as the best league in the world, it's obviously filtered right down the pyramids. So I think you see famously like some of the teams over the years in terms of the National League, you know, trying to get back into the Football League. You look at your Wrexhams and, you know, teams like that where obviously you've got American owners coming in and they're pumping all sorts of money into the club. And you look at where they've ended up now and they're playing in the Championship. So it kind of shows you really, you know, if you're recruiting well and you've got to have that money in terms of to be able to recruit players. It goes to show really that there's not much difference, you know, in terms of the top end of the National League to sort of middle of League One. So yeah, I'd say that it's unbelievably competitive.
Yeah, it's something that again, information comes back, you know, on this side of things as well, is that like a lot of National League teams and over here, because a lot of people grow up here on Premier League football and everything is dealt in tens of millions, hundreds of millions, they have it in their head that that's what football is. And they kind of fail to realise that you could be looking at National League teams that probably have a bigger budget than some Premier League teams here in Ireland.
Yeah, 100%. You know? Because as you say as well, like there's in the National League, there's no financial fair play. So that obviously plays a big part in it. You're getting clubs, you know, who are obviously trying to get back into the Football League, and they're paying more than clubs in League 2, League 1. So as a player, you know, it's a short career. So naturally, you're obviously attracted to making as much money as possible and going to being a part of teams that are obviously getting promotions and winning trophies and getting that on your CV.
And there's literally a documentary series you can watch about that from Wrexham. So you can actually see it in action. Is the Fleetwood Town connection what brought you to Waterford?
I wouldn't say... it was just more of a coincidence, I'd say. Obviously, I was very aware of Waterford anyway. Obviously, if you just touched on there, I was at Fleetwood and the affiliation there. I knew a lot about Waterford, obviously being there, but it was a little bit coincidental, I'd say, that I ended up here. Yeah. Is
there a connection? Obviously, we have a little bit of a Scouse takeover going on at the moment here at the club. Is it maybe John or Danny that contacted you or knew you?
Yeah, we're taking over at the minute. I think the Scousers. But yeah, it was someone I knew in the game. Obviously had a mutual connection with Danny, and they've been in touch and. Obviously, as I say, I come here on the back of, you know, I was away at the time, so I was on holiday. And I just kind of got it put to me, like, you know, would you be interested in going there? So obviously, if I was totally honest, I didn't know. I'd obviously heard of Waterford, but I didn't know too much about the League of Ireland. So obviously sat on it for a few days, learnt a little bit more about it. Obviously, the manager was probably a big pull in terms of what he's done, you know, back in the UK. Absolutely. and the clubs he's managed and for how long he's sort of been in the game. But I think, yeah, it was probably a big pull for me to come in and to sign here.
How does your research go on that? Because again, we're very insular here. We know who we are. We know everything, you know, within the country. But we just mentioned how big the league system is and the non-league system is in England. It's hard enough to keep up with that, let alone know what's going on across the pond in Ireland. So how do you even start to do a bit of research on us over here? Yeah,
well, obviously with me being at Fleetwood, there's a few lads who've obviously sort of crossed the water and had been there previously as well. So I knew, you know, a few faces coming in. So before obviously I come here, I spoke to a few lads and, you know, asked their opinions and what did they think, you know, what did they think of it and stuff like that. And, you know, everyone I spoke to spoke so highly of it here. And then it wasn't long before I come over here for a couple of days and obviously I seen the facilities and obviously met the group. It's a really good group of lads and staff as well, really. So yeah, from that aspect, once I'd seen it and I'd spoken to people and I'd learned a little bit more about it, it was a no-brainer.
It's something I always like to ask as well, the lads that we bring in from cross-channel especially. What is your first impression when you come here and see the facilities and stuff that we have here?
Unbelievable. I think, like, especially when you compare it to the UK, although I was touching on the amount of money that's probably in the game and that's over there at the minute, I'd say the facilities here are second to none, really. You know, comparing this to sort of National League level, you know, National League, League 2, even like some League 1 teams like don't have some of the facilities on offer that the club have here. You know, you've got three pitches to train on, you know, 2 high performance gyms. You obviously got a great stadium in the RSC. Good following behind the club as well. So you've got everything you need really to obviously make a success out of it.
Yeah, I think that's something that I always try and keep pull the eyes back towards is that the foundations of the club we have here at Waterford, the facilities for players to come to, but also to play in with the RSC, with the fan base. We got a new PA system put in. It's louder than ever before down there. The foundations are certainly here, I think, anyway, to really push this club forward.
Yeah, 100%. As I say, the resources and the staff at the club work, tirelessly really, to make sure the lads have got everything they need, and obviously the facilities speak for themselves. So as I say, yeah, we've got everything we need really to be a success.
Just a little bit of, I suppose, as we wind down here about yourself and getting to know you a little bit better. What's your earliest football memory?
Earliest football memory would probably be going to my first Liverpool game. I think it was actually not at Anfield, it was Blackburn, back when, it probably tells you how long ago it was. They were in the Premier League at the time. We went to Blackburn away with my dad, and that was probably the first game I remember, yeah.
That's great.
Ewood Park.
Ewood Park, my God. Who was your earliest football idol?
Earliest football idol, probably cliche as a Liverpool fan, Steven Gerrard, but honourable mention to Fernando Torres, because I think as a kid, being a Liverpool fan, especially when you're younger anyway, everyone wants to grow up and be a striker and the one who wants to score all the goals. And yeah, I think growing up he was probably one of me. I used to have long blonde hair, and I used to have a black Liverpool kit with the Carlsberg sponsor, Torres on the back. And I remember going out in the garden and trying to sort of emulate a few of his goals as a young kid. So yeah, I'd probably say them too.
He was something special for sure. I remember growing up, for me, Robbie Fowler was just everything. And when he left the club, I was, probably 15, and my heart was just broke, and I thought it would never happen again. But when Fernando Torres left,
no, yeah, that broke me.
It broke me. But did you see his little comeback that he had last year in the charity game?
Yeah, I did, to be fair. Yeah. It's good that, obviously the club do that, and they can bring so many sort of club legends back, and they can experience, obviously, playing at Anfield again, and the fans can welcome them.
And you could see what it meant to him that day. He got really emotional.
Yeah, because I think when, obviously, he left, I think so many Liverpool fans sort of turned their back on him, because he's obviously going to Chelsea, which was a big rival at the time for Liverpool. So yeah, for him to come back on, obviously, that's, it was all in the past there.
And I suppose your favourite position?
Well, as a young kid, I was actually a centre midfielder. So I think Jamie Carragher once said, no one wants to grow up and be a Gary Neville. So obviously, as I grew up, obviously I was pushed a little bit further back down the pitch, and obviously being a left footer, I can't really remember how it come about. But yeah, obviously I've been a left back now for as long as I can remember, really, and can sort of operate really in any area of the pitch, and that sort of, left wing back, left back, even left centre back I've played as well. So yeah, probably be left back, yeah.
Excellent. Well, look, Finn, I think I can speak for everyone in the fan base and within the club when I say we're looking forward to having you back out on the pitch again. So hopefully we'll see you very soon, and thank you very much for joining me.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.